Okay, should I start? Okay, let's just wait a few more minutes before we
Yeah,
start.
let's wait a couple more minutes.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I think we're gonna get started. So, hi everyone, my name is Emily Hahn, and welcome to today's workshop on social media graphic design. And So this is the agenda for today. First, I'm just going to start a little bit introduction about myself and my experiences in graphic design. And then we'll talk about intro to graphic design, and we'll talk about the tools, the general principles of graphic design. And I'll show you guys a lot of examples today regarding graphic designs for a lot of different organizations that I have created. And then we're going to go a little bit more advanced into branding and how we can create a unique branding for your organization or whatever company you work for. And I'll also show you guys a bunch of examples. And then we're going to have about 15 to 20 minutes for a Q&A at the end where I'm happy to answer any questions you have. So starting with a little bit more about me, in terms of my graphic design experience, I started doing art when I was 3, and I've done sketch, oil painting, watercolor, and recently I got into digital art a few years ago, and I have about 2 years of experience in marketing and graphic design. So currently, I'm the Facebook manager at a startup in terms of marketing. I'm also the public relations director at a bunch of different clubs at my school, and yeah, I'm also currently doing some market research with a professor. So I do have a little bit of experience in marketing, and I hope to share some of that graphic design experience with you guys today to just kind of see if I can, you can use whatever these experiences I share with you to come up with better graphic design or to come up with a better branding for your organization. And if you want to contact me or learn more about me, you can go to this tiny URL.emilyhahn profile. It has all of my contacts and my LinkedIn, my Facebook, Instagram handle, all of that. So feel free to check it out. All right. Let me just change something right here. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go into first introduction to graphic design. Okay, so we're talking about how to learn what is graphic design? Well, ignore the right part of this slideshow. I forgot to change the setting, but there are a few key components for graphic design. And it's really important that when you design a graphic for your organization, you take all of these components into account because that's really how you're going to come up with a unique branding. So first is typography, and it's basically the text that you're using, what kind of font it is, how big it is. And font, I will argue, is one of the most important part of your branding and your graphic design because it gives people a feeling of what the style of your company is, which we're going to go into that a little bit later. It tells people whether your company is it's a formal company, whether your company is going for the very kawaii look, or whether your company is targeted towards, like young kids who are aged 9 to 12. It really tells a lot about your company. So when you're choosing the type of font that you want to use, as well as the type of color, make sure you keep in mind what type of company you are and then go with the style of your company, the goal of your company. You have to have a value proposition of your company before you choose the branding. There are also layout and composition for graphic design. So that includes the golden ratio, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But there is a specific way in which if you lay out your graphic design and compose your graphic design, it will look better and more appealing to people than just slapping a bunch of canvas element onto a canvas. There are also images. So we'll talk about images as well. And then I'll kind of talk about platforms where you can be able to do graphic design on. And the first one is obviously Canva. I'm sure we've all heard of it. And if you haven't heard of it, Canva is basically this free graphic design website where it has a bunch of templates. And it's really one of the most popular graphic design tools at the moment, I will argue. But I would personally recommend you looking into other different platforms like Figma. Figma has a lot of prototyping. So if you're maybe a company who is launching an app, or if you are a merch designer and you want to do some mock-ups and prototyping, I think Figma is one of the best tools for that. If you're someone who likes to draw and someone who has, an iPad, then I would recommend that you download Procreate. It costs about $28, but it really allows you to draw whatever you want and export it as like a GIF or export it as one of those logo designs with no backgrounds. It allows you to do a lot of stuff. And I would argue that if you're someone who are interested in drawing or who would like to learn more about digital art, Procreate is one of the best tools you can go to. And there's also Adobe Photoshop. So Adobe Photoshop is a little bit more advanced, and it definitely requires you to go online to watch some tutorials on how to use Adobe Photoshop. However, I would argue that if you are only designing graphics for your organization, you wouldn't need Adobe Photoshop. I think Canva, Figma, and Procreate will do the job. However, if you are like an UI UX designer, the Adobe Photoshop is definitely useful. It does cost money to download. I think students have a discount, but it's definitely an investment that you have to decide whether you want to make. All right, so going to the right column here, how can you actually learn graphic design? And the only answer to that actually is just practice. When I first started in graphic design, the different posters, flyers I came up with are very, very non-aesthetically pleasing. However, it really just takes a lot of practice for you to understand what looks the best, especially in terms of what looks the best for your company's value proposition, for your company's goal, what your company's style and aesthetic. So I would recommend if you're just starting in graphic design, try to practice, try to come up with a few different ideas and make flyers about them before you actually go into designing them for your company and posting them on social media. Because if you start posting them and then later on you realize that you were doing something wrong the whole time, it's really hard to change your feed again, and you don't want to be deleting like 20 posts at the same time. So make sure you get some practice in before you actually go into designing actual graphics for your company. And we'll also look at some examples today to kind of give you a feeling of what looks better and what doesn't look that good when in terms of the golden ratio, the different colors, the layout, and etc. Also, when you start learning graphic design, I would say it is okay to start with different templates that various platforms provide you, but do not rely on them, because you have to understand that whatever template you can find online, other people can find it too. And you want your company to have a very unique branding. And it's how really you're going to attract customers, you're going to attract people to remember you, is if you are different than other people. So in order to ensure that, just start with the templates, try to see if you can make the templates look even better, or if you can make the templates look more fitting for your company. And that way you can just first observe why the templates are so popular, but then add your own touch to it. And then lastly, there are a ton of graphic design resources on YouTube. I honestly think nowadays YouTube is one of the underrated sources for academic resources. And I would say graphic design, there are a bunch of videos. If you need me to send you a few videos, you can always feel free to contact me after the workshop. But I would definitely recommend going on YouTube to search up videos on people's examples of graphic design or search for videos on how to use Canva, because I know Canva just added a few new functions. So right now you really have a lot more to explore with Canva than you did a few weeks ago. So I would definitely recommend going on YouTube and watching these resources. And also, I will also say visit other nonprofits' Instagram pages. I know, for example, Cyber to Hack, they have their own branding. They use the kind of neon light pastel colors and have this kind of airy look. And like you can visit other nonprofits Instagram pages just to kind of see what their branding is, whether they have a unique branding, and what do they do to kind of make their branding so unique. Okay, so now we're going to go over two graphic design principles that I have absolutely loved for the past 2 years of my graphic design experience. So the first one is called the Pareto Principle. And I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's called the 80-20% rule. So what the principle actually say is 80% of your result comes from 20% of your effort. So this is not specific to graphic design. But what the Pareto principle tells you is that you'll need to put in 20% of your effort in order to achieve the majority of your result. And what that means in simple words is do not spend your time on meaningless details that generally do not change the outcome of whatever you're producing. So this not only applies to graphic design, but it is super important because when you are trapped in wanting to create these meaningless details, especially in graphic design, you can often spend hours and hours on just one poster that basically have the same outcome as if you were just to spend 20% of your time on it. And this is really important because it's going to save you a lot of time when you're designing graphics. And just to keep this in mind, so that especially when you're first starting, don't try to go for perfect, try to go for, like, okay, try to go for good, but you don't have to go for perfect yet. And honestly, it is really hard to go for perfect because you can always find something to fix about a graphic. So I would say start just by putting 20% of your effort into your practice, and you will generally achieve 80% of your outcome. And that's the Pareto principle. And I think it's super important, not just in graphic design, but also anything else you do in life. Okay, the second one, I'm sure all of you guys have heard of, is called the golden ratio. And what golden ratio is basically just the most appealing to the way that you can arrange something for people to stare at. And here's a picture of golden ratio. So this design of this Egyptian cat is basically following the golden ratio, but how you actually utilize golden ratio in graphic design is you look at this rectangle as two smaller, one square and the other one's a rectangle. And you always want to arrange your graphic in a way that you have a skinny row, a skinny column of, whether it's text or graphic or images, and then the rest of it belongs to another section, maybe another set of images, another set of text. But you want to follow this golden ratio because it is scientifically, mathematically proven to be the most appealing to stare at. And we're going to look over some examples of golden ratio. So this is not exactly what you see right here. So let me see if I can. Okay, so, okay, so right here you can see what I was talking about is you have this one square and then you have this other square. And oftentimes people like to put their logos in the smaller square here, but you don't have to include this. But this is what you want in your graphic design is you want a square that is on the left or the right. It doesn't matter. You can always flip it, but you also just kind of want that same arrangement. So if you look at this example right here, you can kind of see that. Okay, you can kind of see that you have this person right here on the left, and you have this person as the smaller rectangle that we're talking about. And then you have the right side, which is supposedly the square, but it's not exactly golden ratio. But this is kind of what you want to aim for when you're trying to do graphic design, is you want to follow the golden ratio because it might not look the most aesthetic at once, but it's definitely the most appealing to stare at and it makes people not want to look away is definitely mathematically proven. So I would definitely recommend you start trying to practice with golden ratio. This is a graphic design I designed for a congressional campaign that I work for. But yeah, just trying to have these different designs and also trying to have, we'll go over this a little bit later, but if you can see right here, the text that we use, the colors we use, they're red, and you often relate red and black to, like the patriotic colors, Republican versus Democrat. So this is kind of the color why we chose these colors to utilize. So this is just an example of golden ratio. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about branding. And I think this is the actual useful part because I'm sure you guys all work for some organization or school club and they all design their flyers, but oftentimes you can see that they're just using templates from Canva. But if you want to start a company or if you want to start an organization and make sure you have a very cohesive branding, you have to take in a lot of different things into consideration. So what is branding? Well, right here, you can see the different app designs for Google. And so these ones are the old designs for Google. They are what the apps used to look like. And then the bottom ones are the new branding or the new app designs for Google. And what is one thing that pops up to you when you look at these new graphic designs for their logos? Well, I would say is that they all change to the primary colors. Um, Obviously, there are only three primary colors, but yeah, they changed to these four kind of the primary, the very basic colors. There's no pastel, there's no neon, there's no very dark. They're just four colors. And that is the branding of Google. And now whenever you look at these three or four primary colors, you can recognize that this is an app from Google. And what is the style of Google? Well, the style of Google is obviously very simplistic at this point. It is very just having the bone structure. There's not that much decoration. It's just having the basic bone structure for their app design. So that is the branding of Google. And that is what Google wants to go for because they want to appeal as a very kind of authoritative website and adding extra decorations to whether they're app designs or, like just adding extra decorations, adding extra colors that kind of make people feel like they're too complicated and it doesn't achieve that purpose of having this simplistic style. Okay, someone said the previous Google app designs look better. Um, well, that is definitely a personal opinion, but I would say that after the new branding, it definitely allows people to, like remember Google more. And if you go on the Google search engine, obviously we're all familiar with that. They also use the same primary colors on like their websites and stuff. So I think having this branding is really unique and it makes people remember you. Okay, so what is branding? And I put here an example of what a color guide or a branding guide should look like. And I designed this for my school's FBLA club. So basically on the left here, you have these 5 different colors. And then below these 5 different colors, if you can see right here, there are, like 5 different series of numbers and letters. These are called the hex codes. And the hex codes basically allow you to get the exact color that you put on this graphic. So right now, if someone gives me this color guide and wants me to design something for their club, I don't have to like try to match what this color is on my color wheel. I could just put in this line of hex code and it will get me exactly what I want. So what you want to start with, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, the detailed steps of how to come up with a color guide. But on a color guide, you should have a few different colors. You should have a few light colors, a few dark colors, a few neutral colors. And at the bottom, you also want to use, have a few different fonts. And right here, I wrote the name of the font, so it's easier for people to search up. And I wrote the purpose of the font, which I said is for titles. So combining all of these different colors, different fonts, what we get here is a graphic I designed for my FBLA club that looks like this. And this graphic utilized exactly all the colors that you see on the left, and it utilized exactly the fonts you see on the left. And this is what I was able to come up with. So whenever you design a post for the specific organization, you want to always follow this color branding so that you have a very cohesive feed and a very cohesive, like campaign colors or organization fonts. It makes people recognize you right away. Okay, so someone asked, what about Discord's rebranding? Was there a motive behind that? I actually don't use Discord, but I did see that the Discord branding, they started using very kind of a little bit neon colors for their app logos. Well, I would definitely say whenever there is a rebranding, there is definitely a reason for that. However, I am just guessing. Let me clear the annotations. I'm just guessing that Discord wanted to rebrand in order to change some of the elements in their app or their website. I'm not sure. I think they use app for Discord and website that didn't match their previous branding. And adding that kind of a neon color to their logo, they definitely made the logo color a little bit lighter. I think it adds a more techie feel to the app itself because people tend to, like relay whatever neon lights or the neon keyboards, the ones that have the different colors with tech. And I think that might be a reason why. But yeah, there is definitely a motive behind the rebranding for every company if they choose to rebrand. And for whatever reason, right now, I'm sure Discord's branding, Discord's use of colors, fonts, the app itself, the UI, the UX definitely looked more cohesive than it did before. And yeah, you guys can actually go into the app. I'm not really familiar with Discord, but and try to spot the differences or search up online what the old Discord looks like. That would be a really good exercise too. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you guys. On the left, there is the color guide that you want to create for your organization. And on the right, this is the product of the color guide. I use everything that I put on the left to come up with this graphic on the right. Okay, so I have another example of branding, and this one is a little bit more complicated. So I co-founded an organization called Make a Statement that focuses on public speaking education, and we rebranded our organization for various reasons. And if you go onto our Instagram feed at Project Make a Statement, you can see the clear distinction between our new branding and old branding. But on the left, we created this new Instagram guide for all of our colors. So we have all of our colors on the left, we have all the fonts, and we have definitely more than 2 fonts. We have about 5 fonts here. And if you can see right here that we go really detailed and in depth with our fonts, we tell you exactly how large we want the text to be, what is the line height. So the line height is basically the area of space between 2 lines in the paragraph. And then we tell you like exactly what we want. And we say this should be all caps. We tell you the line height is 1.4, this one is 1.1. So there are all of these different things that we included in our graphic design guide. So, and this is what our feed currently looks like. And this way, whenever you have someone on your graphic design team, you can just give this guide to them and they will follow exactly what the guide says. And you will be able to achieve the same branding despite having different designers. And this is the final goal of your branding, is to come up with a guide like this and be able to follow it through in all of your Instagram posts. Okay, I see some question here. What organization is this, or is it just templates? So let me go back to the slides. So this is my own organization. It's called Make a Statement. If you guys want to check out the difference between the old feed and the new feed, you can definitely go on Instagram and visit our Instagram page. But if you scroll down to the very bottom, you can see that we started with practically no branding at all. We just use various shades of purple, and then we slapped together various posts. However, right now we have this rebranding, and then we started making new posts based on the new branding that we have currently on the color. And now we have this new branding. Okay, so I got a question. How do you know the number code of the color? Okay, let me actually show you guys an example of this. Okay, so let's see what I can do here. We'll pull up an example for you guys. Okay. So I'm currently using Canva. It's where I do most of the graphic design because I think it's the easiest. So I designed this slideshow for my pitch as a public relations director. And right here, if you click on the background, you'll see a little square right here that you can see the color of. And these are all the colors I used. And you click on this color and you click on add color. And this shows you the color that I was selecting. So if you choose a different color, it shows you the color you were selecting. And what you want to do is you want to click on add color, and then you see the hex codes right here that you can just copy, paste, do whatever you want. So for example, if I go to this color guide right here, I see the code for this, let's just say this purple that I want to use. It's D6C9DB. So I just have to go here, I click add, and I click D6. I think it was D6C9DB. And I get exactly this purple color that I showed right here on this graphic design guide. So this is how you will utilize the color branding, the different, the color brand that you come up with, and utilize Canva or other platforms. Every platform, you're allowed to enter hex code. You're not allowed to enter hex code on Procreate if you are an artist. I don't think there's a way for that, but you can select different colors on Procreate. So there's definitely a way for you to get the exact color that you want through whether it's hex codes or just selecting the color manually. So I hope that answers your question. Now we're going to go back to the presentation. Okay, so I kind of showed you guys an example that I designed about what a branding is. And obviously some color guides are simpler than the others. It just depends on the organization itself again. So right here, this is the important part. How do you actually develop a branding? How do you actually come up with a color guide like this? Well, here are just a list of steps that you can follow. The first one is define a style. So whether your company is kawaii, that just means cutesy. Whether your company is formal, it wants to be elegant. Whether your company wants to be, like gothic, there's also that type of feeling. Whether your company wants to be, like for example, if you're an environmental organization, then you probably want to be formal because you're advocating for social issues. But if you're an organization that promotes tutoring for kids who age below 12, then you probably want to have the kawaii style, the cuter style, the style that fits the value proposition of your company, your organization. So if you are for your school speech and debate club, then you probably want to have a little bit more formal tone to it because speech and debate tend to be, pretty academic. If you are for your schools, like animal shelter club, then you probably want to be a little bit more cutesy because animals cute. So yeah, first you have to define style. And then based on the style, you have to pick a theme. So what a theme means is, for example, red and blue, that's politics. That's Democrat versus Republican. That's like, like when you look at red and blue, you will immediately think of the flag, the different parties. You just think of politics in general. So if you're having this political club, or if you can see right here, for my FBLA club, I also pick red and blue just because it is a pretty academic activity. And I think red and blue definitely fits FBLA style. And another example would be if you pick green and blue, that would be the environmental issues, or maybe you're advocating for like protecting your eyes, like a greener environment. Or for example, if you pick a few lighter colors, neon colors, that could be for, coding people usually use a very dark black along with some neon colors to create your branding. For a make a statement, we picked the most like neutral and pastel colors because we thought that we just wanted to remain this sort of kawaii style because we do target younger kids. So you just really have to think about, based on the style, based on what you want your organization to appear as, what theme you really want to pick. And you have to go with this theme throughout your organization's journey. All right, so the next thing you would do is based on the theme, you want to pick 2 to 3 light colors and 2 to 3 dark colors. And this is super important because when you're doing graphic design, you're always going to be using some light colors and some dark colors. So make sure you have at least right here, we have, like the font colors, these are all dark colors. The background colors are all light colors. And these are exactly what we use. These are the only 8 colors we use, in fact, other than white and black. So you want to make sure that you pick a few light colors, a few dark colors, and you can even label them. I labeled right here. The light colors are for background, the dark colors are for font, etc. So based on the style that you pick, so if you want to go with the red and blue, like what I did with FBLA, I picked 2 dark shades and 2 light shades. You want to make sure that you have all these variety of colors in your branding so that it's really easy for you to um, design your graphic in the future. You don't have to worry about rebranding or worry about having to pick new colors. All right, and then based on the style, again, the style is super important. Based on the style, pick out 2 to 3 fonts. So if you want the style to be formal, then you probably don't want these fancy fonts that have a lot of different designs to them. If you want it to be kawaii, you can use a font that has more round edges to it. I think the Citro Tac font has that kind of cutesy style, and you can also see based on the branding, the color, that it is trying to go for that more kawaii style. And if you want to go for a more elegant style, you probably want to pick the very neutrally toned colors like tan, and then add a font that has some of these fancy designs to them that make it look very simplistic. So for example, I think the color right here that I used for this branding introduction. So I think this font right here, it could count as a classic elegant font. So you have these like small designs that aren't like super obvious, but it still gives you a more elegant feeling than the just regular like Arial designs. So let me clear these. Okay. After you have picked all of your fonts, you want to label which font is for paragraph, which font is for title, which font is for subtitles, etc., just to make it easier for your graphic design team and for you to really be able to stick to a unique branding. And yeah, I don't know why I added 2 animations, but I think that is it. I wrote here that if you want to get the recording of the workshop, you should fill out this feedback form. But I don't know how Citro Hacks send out their recordings, but it would be really appreciated if you could fill out this feedback form just so I would be able to know whatever I should be doing next time that would help you a little bit better. So there are only a few questions. It should take about 5 minutes at most. And yeah, I will also send out an email after the workshop to send you guys the slides and other resources I have on graphic design. So if you want that, please go to this tiny URL I just sent in the chat. And okay, I saw someone said, honestly, this is really making me think about the color combinations and a branding style I should have kept in mind when I was dealing with Instagram page for a school club. And it's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for the feedback. Yeah, I definitely, let me just quickly show you guys what I was talking about regarding our feed with make a statement. So definitely note that if you have already started and you want to change your branding, it is definitely okay. And that's exactly what I did with my organization, and we are doing perfectly fine. So this is our project make a statement Instagram page. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see all of these different posts. They definitely don't have a branding. We're not there quite yet. We're just using a lot of different yellow and purple, and that was basically our branding from the start. However, we decided that we wanted to go with a more, like formal, but yet still kind of cute look. And we want to keep everything very organized. And that's why we came up with the unique branding, the new branding. And I want to just let you guys know that it's definitely okay to make mistakes and change your branding. So yeah, I just want something to keep in mind that's definitely okay to make mistakes. And yeah, hopefully this was helpful. And now I'm just going to open the floor up to Q&A. So if you guys have any questions about whether it's graphic design, about public speaking, about entrepreneurship, feel free to just drop it in the chat and I'll give you guys a few more minutes to fill out the feedback form and put any questions you have in the chat so I can answer them. Can I go back to the other slide about formatting? Yes, I can absolutely do that. Formatting. Did you mean this slide? Yes. Okay. Yeah, no worries. We can stay on this slide. Okay, no worries. Okay, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to put in the chat and I'll wait just a few more minutes before we end here. How do you get more of your target audience to engage with your posts? That is a great question. And I will say that one of the biggest marketing problem with newer organizations is that right now there's so many different nonprofits out there. It's really hard for people to, like pick you. And that's where branding comes into place. So first, you want to make sure that you really have a very unique branding that's different than everyone else. And whenever people look at a specific color, a specific font, they immediately think of you. And after you have achieved that goal, what you want to do is first off, obviously, when you create a new Instagram account, there is not that much traffic there. So you want to make sure that you have a group of ambassadors or a group of your friends or even family members who are able to promote your post. So if you change your Instagram profile to the business profile, you will be able to see all the insights, how many people interact with your post, how many people save it and put it on their story, etc. So you want to really have that different kind of traffic first. So you want to be able to make sure that your friends, your family members, they are first starting to engage with your posts. And you also, I would say, if you're not an organization that cares that much about like following counts, you should start following different people who follow similar organizations. And like, yeah, so I think for nonprofits, if you do care about how many people you follow, then probably don't want to do that. But just know that branding takes times and it takes years for an organization to get very popular and have like thousands of followers without like following thousands of people. It's definitely hard to do that. But once you have a unique branding, I know you guys have heard of Superposition. They have a very unique branding use of color, and that's why their Instagram feed looks very cohesive and they have so many followers. So in order to increase your target audience engagement, you first just want to start small. You just want to start with your local little niche and have your friends, family members repost a post, and then other people's going to look at it. And I would say once you have about 100 to 200 followers, you can really start targeting your, like, look at your target audience, look at who are following you. And you can even conduct surveys on why they're following you and what kind of content they want to see from you. And then start directing your content towards that while still using your unique branding. And I'm sure that like after a few weeks or a few months of doing that, you will be able to gain a lot more engagement on your page. But also remember, it's really important, especially in the beginning, to do like collaborations with other nonprofits. So if there is a similar nonprofit, don't be afraid to just reach out to them, be like, oh, hey, I am blah, blah, blah. I'm doing this for this nonprofit. And I was wondering if we could have an Instagram takeover on each other's Instagram. That really allows you to get a lot more audience than you think. So having these collaborations, having people do workshops, having people do takeovers, they really increase engagement. Okay, yeah, my preferred pronouns are she and her. Okay, next question. As an entrepreneur, what are some of the things you do? In the future, I would like to do something related to entrepreneurship. That's a great question. It's not related to graphic design, but I'm happy to answer it. So, my first experience with entrepreneurship kind of just started with Make a Statement. So, the project that I shared about earlier, because I personally do a lot of speech and debate, FBLA, Model United Nations, and that kind of stuff. So, I'm a very kind of speech and debate person, and that kind of inspired me to start this organization teaching younger kids about public speaking, because I see all these problems around me that, like, people are scared to talk, people are not good at speech and debate because they don't have the resources that they need, because speech and debate is so expensive to attend all the different tournaments. So that's kind of my first step into entrepreneurship. And then afterwards, I applied for the MIT Launch X program, which is about entrepreneurship, and I was able to get in. So right now in the Launch X program from MIT, I'm currently trying to create this business service website that's about like guiding people through the process of immigration, because it's so complicated and so complex and it costs so much that we just want to simplify the process and avoiding people having to go to different agencies that end up pretty sketchy. So that's kind of another website project we're working on right now. And I'm also working on another entrepreneurial project regarding homelessness. We're designing this web development that basically tracks the population of homelessness, and then having these all different kind of donation drives that gather different resources from people and donate them to the homeless people. So these are just some entrepreneur ideas, and I'm sure there are tons of teen entrepreneurs out there who are super successful. So if you want to get into entrepreneurship, the really only thing you need is to be creative and to be able to sympathize with other people and recognize the problem you have in your communities, and then be able to evaluate whether the problem is worth solving for, the problem has a solution already, and whether you're really interested about the problem that you want to solve for it. So that was just a little bit insight into what I do as an entrepreneur and some of the projects I've been working on. But yeah, if you're interested, you can definitely attend different like workshops on entrepreneurship. I'm sure a ton of organizations do that. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. If you have any follow-ups, feel free to let me know. Okay, any other questions? All right, so if any other questions come up in the future, feel free to just message me on Instagram or email me. I have all my contacts. I'll send the link again in the chat. Yeah, if you ever want to contact me or have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But yeah, thank you guys for coming today. And if you have extra questions, please just fill out the form. And also, if you can, fill out the workshop feedback form. I just sent it again in the chat. And yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, Emily. That was pretty informative. I learned that social media isn't just like getting a Canva template and changing a color. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, everyone.